Hey guys, welcome back to Tactical Pontoon. I am James, and we are in the Trigger Cave again. And why are we here tonight? Really, just want to do a quick video on trigger connectors. Now, obviously it's a very popular thing in Glocks. I've covered it before previously, but as I am embarking on another trigger adventure, if you will, I thought I would go over it again because I went a little bit deeper in some ways than I did before. So I just want to kind of take you guys down the road with some of the knowledge that I've gained here recently. Now, I have a good deal of trigger connectors that I will be going over tonight. But I actually have a couple more coming in, and unfortunately, in my pile of connectors, I seem to have given away my Glock 3.5 pound, or the Glock 4.5, or Glock minus as it's called. So unfortunately, I don't have one here. I'm pretty sure it's at one of the local gun shops. I put it in his gun when I was fiddling with his triggers. So unfortunately tonight I do not have the Glock minus in this comparison. I have another one coming in. Obviously, as we all know, that is pretty much the standard upgrade, if you will. It is considered the good one, the one that's not going to let you down. You hear about Ghost 3.5 pound connectors going binary. I personally have had a Zev V4 race connector that would not work in one of my guns. And when it comes to a connector, an upgraded connector that will work in everything, the Glock Minus is considered top of the heap. And unfortunately, I don't have one here tonight. So maybe I should have waited to make this video. I don't know. I will update. And really, if anything, the update will probably come on Instagram first. Just because, as I said, that's where I have most of my time in order to, give the information out. So if you're not already, subscribe. There will be a link down below. Like and subscribe this video. If you have any questions as I go along or as you're watching this, put them down below and I will get back to you and try to answer them as soon as possible. So with that being said, here we go. Now, one thing I will say, this is not an all-inclusive, this is not the most scientific test in the world. This is what I did with one Glock frame for tonight, and that Glock was my Generation 3 Glock 26 long slide, if you will. This has the Lone Wolf, the new Lone Wolf adapter. And it's a Generation 3 Glock 26 with a Glock 19 barrel, or a Glock 19 slide. So while it is a hybrid, while it is something a little bit special, it's not really going to change the results of what we see here. And this is one Glock frame. Each Glock frame, to an extent, is a little bit different. I've seen them run the entire gamut of good, bad, ugly, and just amazing. So take all this for what you will. Your results may vary. More than likely are going to vary. Just in the slide is a factory 5.5 pound striker. It does have, it might have a reduced weight. Yes, it does have a reduced weight safety plunger spring, but the safety plunger is just polished, not reprofiled. So overall, it is basically a factory gun. All of these tests were done with the Ranger Proof Long Ranger trigger because that is what I'm using, and so you'll have to bear with me. Obviously, if you have a factory trigger or you have some of the other triggers, your results are going to vary. I took my weight measurements from literally, if you look at the pin for the safety blade, that is where I ran my, that's pretty much where I used to test the break weight from. So from right in the middle of that. That's pretty much about where my finger sits. That's about midway on the trigger itself. So I figured that was a fair place to test. Obviously, depending on where you measure from, is where you're going to get different weights. Down low, you have more leverage, so it's going to be a lower break weight. Up high, you have less leverage, it's going to be a higher break weight. So that being said, I used my digital Wheeler Engineering. I know this is not the most accurate scale out there, but it does give a good general idea. As I said, this is not an accurate test on exactly what it's going to be, and your Glock is probably different from mine, so you can get a range. It's going to tell you pretty much approximately what you're going to get. I have seen certain Glock frames that my gun pulled at 3.5 pounds, put the same trigger setup, and they pulled at 5 pounds. There are variations. It's just an unfortunate part of the Glock tolerances, and especially when it comes to P80. And actually, the example I just gave with mine being 3.5 and his being 5 pounds, that was a polymer 80. So you're looking at an entire, that puts just a lot of variables in it when it comes to the polymer 80. So, Glock has pretty large tolerances already. You throw in the polymer 80s, and we're just talking just another game altogether. So, that being said, I got that disclaimer out of the way. I had some surprises. I'm not gonna lie. I had some surprises while I was doing this. Start out, I actually have a plus Glock connector. That is the 8-pound connector, if you will. I have one. I wanted to have one so that I could test a few things, and it turns out it has the same reset as a factory Glock connector, so you're not going to gain anything reset wise. It's very sharp. It is trying to find it here. I've got a pile of connectors. Okay, this is that bad boy right here. You can see the plus right there. Okay, this bad boy has quite a steep angle to it, and while you would think it would be extremely crisp, it's really not so much more crisp than a factory connector. So really, nothing special except for if you really want a very heavy trigger pull, this is your guy. But it resets nice. So I wouldn't say it resets nice. It actually just kind of clunks. It just clunks in there. So it's really an ugly connector. Just nothing good to say about the plus connector. So just nothing. Next up, we had the Unmarked Glock connector, which is this guy. I found that in several different Glocks. It is just factory unmarked. There's no markings on it. Let's go back here for a second. The 8-pound Glock connector was coming in at 7 pounds 6 ounces, so they were pretty much spot on that one. The unmarked Glock connector was coming in at 5 pounds 6 ounces, so pretty much about what Glock says it was going to come in at. Its reset was pretty much basically a factory Glock reset. It was just right there, kind of spongy before the break, and a little bit of pre-travel. So it's a Glock connector. It does what a Glock connector should. So, no surprises there. I did have a little bit of surprise when I grabbed a hold of a dot connector. Now, previous to this, I'm sure you can see the dot right there. Previous to this, I had always considered the dot connector basically to be the same as the unmarked. But in all reality, it actually has a little bit of a different taper to it on this ledge right here. Let's see. That ledge right there actually has a different taper, and who would have known? So that being said, it actually came in at a 4 pound 11 ounce break. So it's actually almost half a pound lighter in break. So I was actually really surprised. Same reset, same creep, same sponginess. So it's a Glock connector, but it is a little bit lighter than the Unmarked. So if you got one sitting around and you're just trying to maybe get your carry gun in somewhere a little bit lighter than that 5.5 pound, this would be the way to go. Next up, we looked at the Ghost 3.5 pound, the basic connector, and it's supposed to be patterned after the Glock minus connector. You know, on the package they say shorter reset. There it is. You can see the embossed, or actually laser etched Glock logo. It's got a little minus back there on that ear. And some of these you will know, some of these actually don't have Ghost etched into them. They just have the minus. And when I was looking through my stuff and I thought I had a minus connector, turned out to be just an unmarked Ghost. So, you know, take that for what it is. Ghost does have a tendency to make 3.5 pound connectors for other manufacturers. I've heard that they make Zev, but with some of the results I've seen here, they must have a special deal for the Zev connectors if they do in fact make them. More than likely they make NDZ. I've heard they make Apex. I've heard different things. So this guy right here, the one thing about it versus a factory connector is the factory connector has, and let's see if I can pull that, make this, okay. You will see that the factory connector actually thins out partway down its span, 10 thousandths less, you know, it's thinner, it's 10 thousandths thinner in the middle, whereas the Ghost actually maintains the same thickness of material all the way down. The Ghost is about 3 thousandths thinner in material. It actually will slip in and out of the connector a little bit easier. So it actually has a thinner material. So just a little geeky thing to know. It is made of thinner material. But as for the claim by Ghost that it has a shorter reset than the factory, I actually found that it had a almost 70 thousandths longer reset than factory. So it wasn't the shorter reset wasn't. I didn't see that in my testing. As for the pull weight or the break weight, it was breaking it at 4 pounds 9 ounces. So really just under the dot connector. So take that for what you will. I would almost prefer the dot connector with a little bit heavier trigger pull. It did have a little bit less take up, but not considerably so. I would consider this the bottom of the barrel. And that's coming from somebody who actually really likes some of the nicer Ghost connectors that we will be getting into here in a minute. Speaking of that, the next one that we're going to talk about is the one of my favorites, actually, and it is a Ghost. It is the Ghost Evo Elite. This guy is the funky-looking guy that you will see quite a bit different, and there's a reason why they did that. There's a reason why it's one of my favorites, because they went in and they pretty much re-engineered this connector. For some guns, it works amazing. For some, it's a little bit closer to the edge than what you need. It is actually one of the things, there's a little tab, that little ear tab that you'll see right up here, that actually sits up almost 100 thousandths taller than factory and, well, actually not so much the factory, but the Ghost Edge. And I know some people, I was talking to Jonathan, he said he had issues with the Ghost Edge not resetting on aftermarket slides. So I may have to do some measuring on the reset ramps. That might be the issue as to why he's not having as much luck as he should. This guy, however, sits way up there. You're definitely going to get that reset that you need. Couple different things about it. It does have a shorter reset. This one does meet up to their criteria for a shorter reset. So they are correct there. Like I said, it does have one of my favorite overall profiles. We were looking at a 3 pound, 14 ounce pull. So while it was not a 3.5 pound, it was relatively light. Very little sponge. It right at the wall with that trigger, and you bring it back, it breaks. And the cool thing about this guy is it does have that over travel stop that you have to put in there. This for a long time was my connector of choice. I have since moved away from it in order to control over travel with a different, a different style. As for how thick this connector is, it's about as thick as a factory connector. However, the ledge that the trigger bar rides on is actually a little bit thinner. There are a couple things I do not like about this one. There's some points where it can break. Aside from that gigantic, cleaning hole in the middle, just not a fan of these weaknesses. So, while I would not have a problem carrying this, I don't know that I would take it into battle per se. It is a fancy high-end connector that has been redone. It is an excellent connector. Pretty much the top of my list. As for a shorter reset, it resets about 40 thousandths sooner than a factory connector. So that's the Evo Elite. Next one up, we had the Lone Wolf Classic. This guy is kind of an interesting design, and you will notice it's the one that went on a diet. Still has a big head, but it did go on a diet. Neat connector. I've heard good and bad things about this guy, so obviously I had to grab a hold of one. Metal thickness, it does not, they did go thinner in the middle, but as for like the thickness all the way down, it does maintain the same material thickness for spring weight. It also reset sooner, about 40 thousandths, so its reset mirrored the Ghost Evo, and where was that? Okay. It mirrored the Ghost Evo reset. As for the break weight, it broke at 4 pounds, 1 ounce. So basically, it became a 4 pound connector. Overall, it did have some sponge and some creep, but it was it's a nice connector. It's not bad. Really, I would not mind running this. This is definitely not a top of the line connector, but it is a good connector. I would definitely have it over the Ghost 3.5. So that being said, next we'll go up to the Zev Pro. This guy surprised me a little bit. I really, when I first saw it, I thought it was basically just a Ghost 3.5, just repackaged. But this little guy, and you'll notice it by the little hash marks on the reset here. It also mimics the factory connectors by necking down the material. It's the same thickness as a factory connector, and it necks down the same 10 thousandths. This guy here, really, it surprised the crap out of me, to be quite honest. You literally are against the wall, has a minimal amount of sponge, and the reset. Now, the one thing about it was the reset. You gave up some on the reset. It actually resets about 30 thousandths past the factory Glock. So it does have a longer reset, but it breaks right at 4 pounds, and feels right at that wall. So even though it has a longer reset, it does have an excellent feeling. I really like this connector, and with its profile being very similar to a factory Glock, with an excellent feel, I would recommend the Glock or the Zev Pro. Excellent connector, really surprised me. The next one that I have here is one that also surprised me, because in the past I have used it in other guns, and one gun just did not like it at all, and now I'm seeing why. It is more on the edge than I remembered it being. That's this guy. It's got all the holes in it. It's actually made of a thicker material. It's 40 thousandths instead of the 38.5 thousandths. Not really a lot of material, but I guess they did that to maybe help with, strength, having drilled the holes in the middle of it. So that being said, it broke at 4 pounds consistently, but it was spongy. It had a good bit of take up and some sponge, and then it would break. So while it was, while it is, a race connector, it's that rolling break. It's not real crisp. It's not real concise. I would not run it unless I was one of those people that really liked the rolling break. So the one, probably its most outstanding feature is, out of all the connectors that I have tested, this one reset the quickest. It's 80 thousandths before factory. So when it comes to reset, this guy is king. When it comes to a rolling break, you want a rolling break, you want an extremely quick reset, this is probably your guy, but I will say I have had problems with it in one of my frames in the past. And I have heard of them breaking where those lightning holes are, those self-cleaning holes are. So that would be the Zev Race version 4. Not a bad connector if it has the profile that you like. The last one that I have here tonight is actually in the gun right now, and it is pretty much my current favorite. And that would be the Ghost 3.5 Edge. Reason why I went with that, why I like it over the Evo Elite, is because the Evo Elite, you have to shave it down to get that over travel protection, whereas the Edge, you do not. So with the Edge, you're looking at 40 thousandths quicker reset than factory. Right against the wall, it has excellent feel. When you have that trigger, when you have that in there with the Long Ranger, it's right up against the wall. It's ready to go. Minimal amount of sponge, and then it breaks. That break is at 3 pounds 14 ounces on this gun. So it's a relatively light trigger when the gun is set up factory, as it is. So there you have it. I don't want to keep you forever. I'm already at 23 minutes. So I will update this when the other connectors come in. But I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge for if you are coming up needing another connector. So that being said, we will catch you later on Tactical Pontoon. Questions, any of that sort of thing, go down below. And ask them there. I'll check back in and answer as possible. So like, subscribe, and we will catch you later, because I'm just rambling on at this point. Catch you later.